Welcome to Cosmic Scene with Jill Jardine. I'm your host, Jill Jardine, Master's in Counseling Psychology, professional astrologer, psychic, healer, and yogi. In this episode, I'm going to discuss the Mercury Retrograde from February 26th through March 21st, 2026. Stay tuned to see how you'll be affected by this Mercury Retrograde cycle. Welcome to the episode on Mercury Retrograde from February 26th through March 21st, 2026. I'm going to share a lot of information about Mercury Retrograde in general, and then explain what it means going retrograde fully in the sign Pisces. So when planets travel retrograde, including Mercury retrograde, or what looks like reverse motion astronomically, it's a common phenomenon in astrology. Astrologically, a retrograde is when a planet travels backward through a zodiacal sign. Since retrograde motion is so radically different than the norm, it's not a surprise that many people often experience it as disruptive. And every planet goes retrograde pretty much, except for the sun and moon. And the outer planets are retrograde for almost half a year. I'll tell you a little bit more about the specifics of Mercury retrograde later in the episode. So when planets go retrograde, including Mercury, our perceptions are changed, our attitude and trajectory. A lot of times Mercury retrograde will slow people down. Not that they want that as an outcome, but it happens organically because of the response from the outside world. When a planet passes the Earth in its orbit, or vice versa, it is said to be going retrograde. From our vantage point on Earth, it is almost as if the planet is moving in reverse. This is an illusion, but it's a bit like two trains passing at different speeds. One appears to be going backwards. During Mercury retrogrades, we implement all those RE words, such as review, revisit, reassess, reestablish, reunite, reconnect, research, realize, reawakening. And think about it, retrograde starts with an RE. Retrogrades may not be the best times to initiate something, but they can be very good for tying up loose ends or giving a waylaid project a second chance to succeed. Retrogrades are periods of reassessment and redoing. They frequently deal with the past, especially Mercury retrograde. So things, situations, and even people from the past can reappear. Mercury retrograde is a time to slow down, do some personal reflection, and review the trajectory we've been on. By making an effort to check ourselves and learn from our past during a retrograde, we can move forward with more clarity and confidence once it's done. During retrogrades, issues that we've tried to bury or ignore could come back to the surface to haunt us, forcing us to deal with them and find some kind of resolution. Even situations that we thought were finished could bubble up again in some way, requiring us to come to new conclusions or learn new lessons. Now, what I've seen with Mercury retrogrades is the phenomena of blasts from the past. People we haven't heard from in a while can show up in our lives through a text or a phone call or on Facebook or other social media and hit us up with a message. So if you're in the space to reconnect, do it. There could be some bigger reason why the connection is happening. A lot of times it will bring resolution to something from the past. And so when a Mercury does go retrograde, we're not just experiencing it personally, but everybody in an entire population will experience the RE aspect of Mercury, meaning revisiting a situation personally or collectively. So we can also have things that happen in the collective, like an old news story comes back, or wait, there's another level to the Epstein files, or there's another revealing of something in the collective that was hidden long ago. So it's very interesting to watch what resurfaces during a Mercury retrograde. In general, with retrogrades, all planets in astrology rule over a different part of our lives. It's within those parts of our life that we'll experience the retrograde fueled effects while the planet is backspinning. So, with Mercury retrograde, again, it's also with communications. Maybe we need to review something we had communicated earlier, whether it was in writing form or through a message or an email. And that means that we have to be very vigilant in editing and looking at any communications that we're going to send out during the Mercury retrograde period. So, a little bit of astro info on an actual Mercury retrograde. Mercury retrogrades 24 days at a time, 3 to 4 times a year. So, this is the first Mercury retrograde from February 26th to March 21st in 2026. And it is in the sign Pisces. It's the first Mercury retrograde, but it's going through the last sign of the zodiac. Mercury is the planet of communication, thinking, timing, and technology. Its retrogrades can cause all sorts of mix-ups, scheduling snags, and tech glitches. Now, as I mentioned, it does retrograde 3 to 4 times a year. In 2026, we're going to have it retrograde 3 times. So the signs that are most affected by Mercury retrogrades are going to be Virgos and Geminis because Mercury is their ruling planet. And then it's whatever sign Mercury's retrograding through. In this case, this late February, March retrograde, it's through the sign Pisces. And it's all Pisces. Sometimes Mercury retrograde can start in a sign and then finish up in a different sign, which actually complicates it a little more. So having it just go through Pisces only is going to keep the Pisces themes going, which I'm going to share later. So if you're a Pisces, obviously, you're going to be very affected by this Mercury retrograde. You also want to see where Pisces is located in your natal chart because that area of your life could get a little complicated or there could be some issues happening. For instance, if Pisces is ruling or is your 4th house, which is the house of home in astrology, you could have some issues with water or plumbing or heating or other Piscean issues. Maybe Pisces is a water sign, so it would be water issues. So that kind of thing can definitely happen. If it was in your 3rd house of communication, you're going to have a lot of, in addition to Mercury being the communication planet with it going retrograde and Pisces is your 3rd house, people are going to need you to clarify quite a bit and your communications could be very jumbled or they could be cloudy to people, or people may not get your messages. They may say, hey, I never got that message. What are you talking about? Or I never received that email. So it does depend on what house Mercury is retrograding, what sector of your astrological natal chart. So you can find that out by consulting with your favorite astrologer at JillJardineAstrology.com. As a planet of communication, Mercury retrograde tends to breed a certain level of confusion. Mercury rules our lower mind, how we perceive and interpret information that we receive from our environment, and how we relay that information to others. Mercury has rulership over such things as speaking, negotiating, buying and selling, listening, formal contracts, documents, travel, the mail, email, shipping, and so forth. All these areas of life are affected when Mercury is functioning slowly. Decision-making is challenged during Mercury retrograde. And as we all may know, it's advised not to sign contracts or engage in important decision-making or launching a new business. I specifically tell clients of mine, do not sign a house contract or buy a car. Signing contracts during Mercury retrograde is a no-brainer. Don't do it, especially in Pisces, because there could be some confusion involved. Delays and challenges are more probable with Mercury retrograde. It's a time when being careless with money or personal information or paperwork can be costly. So get everything done before the 26th of February. But there's absolutely a positive side to Mercury retrograde. This period is best used for reorganizing and reflecting. Mercury retrograde periods can be times of heightened inner awareness when meditation, keeping a journal, reworking old plans, and reviewing past work are favored. Mercury retrograde is powerful for studies, particularly for returning to old studies or for relearning or refreshing knowledge in a subject already taken. So go to your bookshelf, pull out those old books that you haven't read in a while, and revisit, reread. You'll get a whole new level of interpretation, especially any spiritual or self-help books under Mercury retrograde in Pisces. So now we're going to talk about what does it mean when Mercury is retrograde in the sign Pisces. So we think about the astrological archetypes of the sign Pisces. They're very intuitive. It has to do with imagination, creativity, dream time, spiritual realms, that liminal space between the worlds. So this transit will be colored by Pisces' deep intuitive energy and can be more about inner review, emotional clarity, and spiritual listening than purely logistical delays. And as Mercury spends the full retrograde cycle in Pisces, this means that the messenger is going backward through the sign of dreams, intuition, spirituality, imagination, and blurred boundaries. So when you're connecting with people or communicating, get those boundaries clear or things will be misunderstood. So usually Mercury rules over logic and rationality and the mind. But here it's going to meet Pisces' emotional, intuitive, and spiritual symbolic language. So connections, conversations may feel a little cloudy, may be very emotionally loaded, miscommunications, misunderstandings could happen. So be aware of that during this cycle. What we are being asked to do, and we just had this jump start of the epic conjunction of Saturn and Neptune on February 20th. 6 days later, Mercury goes retrograde. So instead of jumping into new projects, we're being asked to slow down, reflect, and revisit. Mercury retrograde is saying chill the fuck out. And it's also about processing relationships, inner beliefs, and emotional habits. We need to reassess clarity versus illusion, fantasy, and reality. Pisces energy dissolves the hard edges. So it's time to see what you're projecting out into the world, release old narratives, unresolved conflicts, conversations, things that you have obsessed or not resolved will come to the surface to look at and be readdressed with a form of gentleness or self-compassion. But even though it is retrograde in Pisces, a more numinous sign, the traditional Mercury retrograde themes will apply, such as communications require extra vigilance. There could be misunderstandings that are emotionally charged, or people assume things without getting the actual facts. Projects will need revision. There can be delays. Never a good time to launch anything during a Mercury retrograde. And this Mercury retrograde goes direct on March 21st, which is the beginning of spring and the Aries equinox. Always a good time to start things. So if you can use this month to be very creative, and you'll get extra insights so that when you do launch in the Aries equinox, it's go time. The beauty about this Mercury retrograde being in Pisces is that dreams can be very enhanced. We could receive precognitive dreams that are giving us information of what may come to pass in the future. We can connect with loved ones from the other side, or we could see ourself in the past and reclaim memories and warm, fuzzy feelings from the past that show up in the dreams. We can also reconnect with old ideas, people, and heal unfinished emotional patterns during Mercury retrograde in Pisces. So it can be an emotionally charged time. So don't judge yourself. Listen to what's happening, listen to what's surfacing. Don't react, don't project onto others. Maybe do some internal work. Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. We're completing things before we launch. So use this time. It's also can be a great time to clear space, clear the clutter, go back through those files, clear the home front, get rid of old things. You don't have to get the new stuff yet, but just make the space. Journal your dreams and inner language. Pisces, Mercury retrogrades will amplify subconscious messages. Double check all your communications. Projects may need revision. And as I mentioned, emails, messages, texts need extra proofreading. So, some key dates for this Mercury retrograde to remember is that it starts February 26th, 2026. So 22626, Mercury retrograde starts. And Mercury goes retrograde at 22 degrees Pisces. On March 8th, Mercury will trine Jupiter, which is a very good time for an expansive perspective. On March 15th, Mercury will conjunct Mars. This may be a bit of a volatile time. Tempers may run high. There may be frustrations. And then, depending where you live, Mercury will go direct on March 20th or 26th. So remember, this Mercury retrograde in Pisces invites a gentle inner revision, revisiting not just what you say or do, but what you feel and believe. So use this time to go within, attune to your higher self, and heal what is still raw and needs resolution. And as I said, you need to find out, where is this Mercury retrograde occurring? So get your personal reading of how this Mercury retrograde impacts you at JillJardineAstrology.com. Stay tuned for the impacts for each sun sign during this Mercury retrograde cycle. Hi there, this is Jill Jardine, host of Cosmic Scene with Jill Jardine, and I have some news for you. Some of you know that I have a book that's published called Sacred Sound Formulas to Awaken the Modern Mind, Sanskrit Mantras to Raise Your Vibration. Well, now I have the companion oracle cards for Sacred Sound Formulas to Raise Your Vibration. You're going to have a lot of fun with these. You pull a card, you get the mantra that will help you at whatever moment you pick the card, and so much more. So make sure you go online and order yours now, JillJardine.com. Here's the part of the episode you've been waiting for. How is this Mercury retrograde cycle going to affect my sign? Aries, it's a time when you're really going to have to stay focused, get very clear about what is your emotional truth. Expect to revisit conversations where you weren't fully heard or where you didn't fully express yourself. Work on your inner narrative. Work on some self-talk. Boost yourself. Don't criticize. So use the inner narrative and inner dialogue to be a healing and healthy one instead of critical. And if there's some kind of difficult conversation you need to have with someone, Aries, you really need to rehearse it or journal it before you execute it, whether it's through a conversation or an email. Practice makes perfect, Aries. Taurus, your focus will be on friendships and groups. You might revisit old friendships and you will start becoming more social, even though it is an internal time. You're looking at how your spiritual life can coexist and integrate into your day-to-day life. So you have been cultivating a new value system in the past months, and now Mercury retrograde in Pisces gives you a chance to integrate it while thinking about future goals, because it will be happening in your solar 11th house. So use this time to release the past, release old burdens, release old sabotage patterns, and get ready to launch into your future. Reflect before assuming intentions with others. Gemini, the focus is on career communication and reputation. So, because it is your ruler, Mercury retrograde could get a little out of hand where there are assumptions that are playing out. You have to be crystal clear with your intentions. You may need to revisit projects, and your email messages have to be proofread over and over. So you need to clarify expectations with coworkers or others in your daily life. Cancer, the focus for you is on your beliefs and emotional frameworks. You may be feeling a little bit more raw and emotional because Mercury's retrograde in fellow water sign Pisces. So things are surfacing, things that you thought you had already dealt with and buried. So it can be very emotionally charged for you, but at the same time, it can be spiritually enlightening if handled properly. Leo, you're looking at shared resources and boundaries. There could be conversations about money and shared responsibilities. You may have to revisit boundaries compassionately. What's expected of you? What's expected of the other? And set your boundaries in a new way. And you may have to reinforce them and repeat them more than once, Leo. Virgo, you're looking at relationships. What's been left unsaid? How has communication been? Has it been clear? Have you let others try to speak for you, or have you been waiting for them to connect with you in the way that you want? Well, you may have to take some initiative, but you have to come from a place of emotional understanding. So practicing active listening is very important for you, Virgo, during this Mercury retrograde. Libra, your focus is on sustaining your day-to-day practices and rhythms, because the Mercury retrograde may want you to sleep more, especially in Pisces. It may have you indulging more. It will be a challenge to your Libra balance. You may find yourself taking deep dives into one area of your life and ignoring the others, and you really have to look at habits and those habitual patterns that may not be the best for you. So slow down and really revisit your personal rhythms. Scorpio, your focus is on creativity and passion projects. So old creative ideas may come to the surface, and this time you may see them clearer. And you may either feel the emotional connection or neutral, or it's something that you don't want to proceed with. So you can release, but you can also receive new inspiration. So let ideas and creativity begin to gestate before putting them into action. Sagittarius, the focus for you is on your emotional foundations and your home life. There may be some family dynamics showing up or issues in the actual home that need attention. People might be feeling a little bit ornery in your home, and so you have to do some tiptoeing. Take some time to process your feelings before reacting, and try meditating so that you can get clear. Capricorn, you're taking a deep dive into your belief system, maybe re-examining and releasing beliefs about yourself and others. And you may also see that things that used to excite you no longer float your boat. You may be looking for some new inspiration and some new pursuits once Pisces Mercury goes direct in the month of March. And when Mercury goes direct at the beginning of the Aries equinox, you're going to be very excited. So take this time to do some emotional process before you dive into your future. Aquarius, You're revisiting your communication style. You may be learning some new things, revisiting books, revisiting old information that you can repurpose. You have to slow down. You want to go full speed ahead. Be very vigilant in your messages before you send them. And before you have any new insights come through, make sure that they make sense for yourself and others before you share. So focusing on your communications. And Pisces, it's a big one. It's in your sign. So it's all about, who am I? Who am I? It is your Mercury retrograde, so it's very powerful. Everything may be quite charged up. Emotional insights, connections with others, dreams may feel very meaningful. You could confront some old emotional patterns or dissolve narratives about who you think you are. So it's all about reflecting, journaling, writing, speaking into your voice memos app. It's all about you, Pisces. So get to know yourself once again. I hope you enjoyed this episode about Mercury retrograde in Pisces in late February and March of 2026. Remember to listen and listen over and over again. Share, download, subscribe, and give us a 5-star review. You all have some Pisces friends out there. They need to hear this podcast. This is Cosmic Scene with Jill Jardine, sending healing Piscean pulses into the quantum field. Stop.